Hey guys, this is Banning from the Nosebleeds podcast. I'm one of 3 hosts, including Cam and Colin, and each week we have an episode where we talk about everything that happened from the past week in sports, and we also have an Instagram at _nosebleeds_podcast where we try to post daily, and we have daily polls, and we try to stay interactive with the fans. If this interests you and you would like to listen to the podcast, we would greatly appreciate it. We're just starting out. At the time of this recording, we're only 4 episodes in, and each week we're trying to get better and improve. So if this sounds like something you want to listen to, hopefully you'll check us out. We're on Spotify and Apple Music, hopefully YouTube in the future. And if you want to find the older episodes, episode 1 and 2, we are on SoundCloud, but all the new episodes will be on Spotify and Apple Music from now on. And we have updates on our Instagram almost every day. So if this sounds like something you would like to listen to, hopefully you'll check us out, and we'll see you in our next episode.
I am Wes, modern mythology enthusiast and defender of the realm of toy collecting. This is Andy, my fearless friend. Fabulous secrets were revealed to me the day I powered up my dynamic mic and said, "Welcome to Fandom Power!" Andy became the mighty producer Andrew Daw, and I became host Wes, the newest pop culture podcaster on the interwebs. Only 2 others shared this secret, friend of the show and regular co-host Hank McLaughlin, and my lovely wife Kimberly. Together we explore the realms of fandom and bring it to you as only we can. Fandom Power is available on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Fandom Power is a Sawcast production.
Before we jump into that, though, there's a lot of news that's been happening across the league, for the NFL anyway, where we've got a lot of movement, a lot of deals being done, a lot of negotiations happening. We didn't get a chance to. Let's start with the kind of more boring news. Ben Roethlisberger, he re-signs back with, or restructures his deal with Pittsburgh to kind of free up some cap space for them. What do you think about Ben Roethlisberger returning for another season?
Yeah. Exciting times in Pittsburgh, I tell you.
I guess.
Exciting times. Not really. I guess we didn't really know what to expect out of Ben Roethlisberger or whether or not he was coming back, but it was just kind of one of those stories we were just waiting to hear. Probably this move and this deal could have probably waited, in the scheme of how it would have hit, fans or the audience or they even to even look at it from a interest point, because we're looking for the big deals right now. Everybody's waiting on
it. Did get a full day of coverage from
but how much traction did it get? That's
honestly, it feels for me like Ben Roethlisberger re-signing with Pittsburgh kind of feels like they're kind of dead in the water. Ben Roethlisberger, for me anyway, I know a lot of people have been in love with him, and finally, even before he had that injury a couple seasons back, people were just talking about how great he was and how far they can go with Ben Roethlisberger. I'm like, since they won that Super Bowl, however many years back now, he really hasn't been able to get them over he hasn't had the physical ability, the intangibles, the tangibles, like all of the skills and talent required to get them over that hump anymore. So to me, I've always seen Pittsburgh as a team that's going to be a perpetual playoff team. Every single year they're in there, but they're not going to beat the New Englands. They're not going to beat the whoever they have to beat to get over. Now it's Kansas City. I don't even see them beating them. They couldn't beat Cleveland this past season. So it just feels like every single year they bring back Ben Roethlisberger, they're going to continue to regress. But you also have to look at the other side of it. What was their other option going to be? Dewey Haskins? I just really don't. I don't see, or Mason Rudolph for that matter. Those guys weren't going to cut it for him. So I mean,
looked like more of a PR move. Just they didn't really have a plan.
Yeah.
And I think their best option was just, which is not really the greatest option, was to just bring him back, which would be much more easier, much less controversial. You want to send him off the right way. It's kind of a. I think this is just one for taking one for the team type. I mean, let's be real. He signed a 1-year deal. He's restructuring his contract. He's moving money around. You don't never really hear players taking less. So the writing's on the wall. This is a farewell tour for Ben Roethlisberger, and rightfully so. He had a very good career, but
I mean, hopefully they have fans in the stands next year for him to have a proper send off, but it's not going to end on a high note like a lot of Pittsburgh. I know a lot of Pittsburgh fans came out as soon as they restructured that deal to have everything figured out. Like, oh, he's taking one for the team. He's trying to get more money in here so that they can go ahead and sign some other guys to get them over the top. And I'm like, yeah, you can sign all these other guys, but Ben Roethlisberger has to be the guy to get you the ball. And we saw over the last 6-7 weeks of the season, even in that Colts game that they won towards the end of the season, it still looked bad. It just he isn't able to get the ball to the spots that he needs to on a consistent basis. I'm not saying that for one play he can't throw a bomb. Like, he obviously still can command the team. He still has the leadership ability and all of that, but you still have to throw the ball and come through for a full 60 minutes of play on every Sunday or Saturday in the playoffs, whatever it is. But you have to come through and play on those days. And if you're not able to do it for all 60 minutes, your team's not going to make it there. And so I just kind of feel like this puts Pittsburgh in this stagnant spot where, cool, you're going to be competitive in the division, but I don't see you beating out Baltimore or Cleveland for that matter in this division right now. And depending on what Cincinnati does, even Cincinnati might look better than Pittsburgh at this point after this offseason goes through. So we'll see where they are with Joe Burrow and the rest of that roster. They really do have to fix up that defense. But, man, I just feel like this is a very stagnant lateral move by Pittsburgh.
I couldn't agree more. I no need to regurgitate that. I agree 100% with that.
All right, perfect. Well, let's move off the boring stuff now. Before we get to the big one, Dak Prescott, let's talk about Alex Smith for a second. He does get released by Washington, another quarterback who's going to be on the move. I have some thoughts about this. I feel like Washington.
I'm about to ask you a few questions, so
go ahead.
So I'm going to give you the floor. I ask my questions based on what you say.
So for me, I don't understand why Washington would move off of him. It doesn't make any sense to me. At this point, you got the comeback player of the year. He is the sole reason he went 5-1 in the 6 games that he started and got you guys into the playoffs. I feel like it's incredibly disrespectful because apparently the reports that came out were the fact that Alex Smith knew it coming back when he was cleared by the doctors to play. It threw a whole wrench into Washington's plans, and he knew Washington was ready to move off of him and kind of go in a completely different direction. They didn't really want him back, but they had to take him back because he was under contract, and he still the doctors cleared him. He could play football again, and so when he made that choice to come back, they didn't like it, and he visibly saw that. Whether it was somebody came and told him that they didn't want him back, or it was just the demeanor by the coaching staff or whatever. That's besides the point. But you come out there and you and Alex Smith is just balled out, in all honesty. At 35 years old, at that time, 36 years old now, plays fantastic football on a crap team that had a ton of injuries to get this team into the playoffs. Again, it's the NFC least. I understand it, but that it did take a lot for this team to get there, and he did that. It was a lot to do with that defense and a lot to do with Alex Smith. So for them to kind of disrespect him in my eyes and cut him because they don't feel like he has it anymore when he's their best option, in all honesty, I didn't like it. But
well, I mean, that's one way of looking at it. I mean, but there's an argument to be made. I mean, for that, I won't necessarily completely disagree with that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I share the same sentiments completely or had this love fest for Alex Smith. He's definitely comeback player of the year on some level. Definitely came from that vicious injury. But I mean, the man only played 16 games in 3 seasons. I understand he had the injury, but it's a very small sample size. Yeah, that's great. I guess over 3 years is where you lose me. It's just like, man, that's great, but over a 3 year span it's hard to evaluate what his worth really is to Washington. And if you want to look at it from this year, even a smaller sample size.
No, so I mean, when you say that, this is what upsets me about that.
Okay.
Over the past 3 years, where have they been?
Nowhere.
Dead last, and you maybe third place in this division. Maybe I can't really remember, but not good. You're not in the playoffs. But when you had this small little window, and he was finally ready to come back and play, he goes 5-1.
Okay.
On the toughest part of your schedule. Come on, like he's your best option. And and I get you want to save money, and especially with the salary cap year and the way that the salary cap is looking like it's about to go down. Still don't know how the NFL hasn't come out and told any of these NFL teams what the official number is going to be yet, as we're only a week away from the free agency opening up here. But man, I don't like the way that they that's my question is who is better than Alex Smith for Washington right now? I mean, I understand you're really excited about Taylor Heineke. And he's only $4 million on your cap hit. Cool, gotcha. If you want to go with that, if that's your rationale, I understand it. But I feel like you could have done a little bit more right by Alex Smith. And for I guess what makes me more upset about it is not the fact that they cut him, is the fact that they visibly made Alex Smith feel like he wasn't wanted.
True.
I feel like that's what I have more of an issue with.
That, yeah, and that after doing a little research, I digged a little deeper into the story, and yeah, I've caught information about just based on his relationship with the organization, and the organization didn't really show a whole lot of faith in him. So when you put it in that context, sure, I can agree with virtually all of that. But just the love fest from a personal standpoint, I'm like, yeah, I mean, he didn't pass because I'm saying that because he did not pass the eye test for me. It just didn't look good, Okay. But that does not mean he's not efficient. That doesn't mean he can't be successful. But as a personally, and I remember you was going in, I really hope the Bears call him. Pump your brakes.
Only if we don't get Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson.
See, I have a list of players, and I got quite a few running backs I put ahead of him. And that's getting into a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But staying on Alex Smith, I think there's still a market for him. But man, it only takes one good hit on that leg.
I know that scares a lot of people.
It scares me. It just as watching as a fan, I'm just like, every time he gets hit, I'm just like, okay,
question.
That's it. Is his leg snapped in half? It's just you seen what it looked. I have to see what his pre-game ritual is as far as what is really protecting his leg when he's out there. Because,
but I mean, even
it just seemed like at any point he just take a step and it's just gonna snap in half.
And I get that, but a lot of people are talking about how gruesome the injury was. But if you go back and watch the play, it was not anywhere near what the actual Joe Theismann injury was like, where that was just vicious. They absolutely were diving at his knees, and he completely missed and snapped his leg. It wasn't like that. It was on a routine sack by J.J. Watt, and I forget who the other guy was behind him who hit him from the side. But it was just a routine play. He was trying to protect the ball. He was going down, and it was funny because I literally just watched a video from Alex Smith talking about the hit. He was just like, honestly, he didn't know his leg was broken until when he tried to stand up. Like it wasn't one of these injuries where
it was that bad, huh?
Yeah,
you don't even realize how bad.
He was like, he said he felt his leg go a little bit fuzzy, and then when he tried to stand up, he was like, oh no, like
fuzzy is code for broken off.
Yeah,
completely.
So I mean, at the end of the day, like that play wasn't as gruesome as people kind of like go back and look at it. Like honestly, the Dak Prescott ankle injury was more gruesome than the Alex Smith injury if you really go back and watch the two plays. So, I mean, I get that it's scary just knowing what the injury was in any hit that you take, but that's for anybody. Any hit that you take could be your last when you're playing in the NFL.
Right, and that's true. Now, there's another flip side to what, part of what his release led up to. Now, he didn't feel that they were, that they really bought into him or really, was invested in him any further, and and he felt the need to want to go move on his end, as well as Washington wanted to see him just go ahead and move on and wish him the best and all the success out there. But also, man, he was gonna hit the cap for 24.4 million.
Yeah, and I understood that. Like I didn't
complete business move at the end of the day.
But I feel like Alex Smith, he's not one of these guys where like, oh, I'm worth that 24 point whatever million. He's going to be a guy who's definitely willing to work with the organization, restructure that contract, spread that money out over a couple of more years. Because honestly, even if you want to move off of him and you want to go in a different direction for a quarterback, to take the cap hit or the dead money hit, you can restructure that contract, put it over 3 years, whatever you want to do with it. Go get your guy, whoever you want to do to replace him, and do the Patrick Mahomes thing. Have Alex Smith be there to mentor him and be that backup guy, or the Nick Foles thing, whatever you want to do. Have him be the backup. I don't see why he wouldn't want to do that. Obviously, if he feels like he can be a starting quarterback, you can again restructure that contract over 3 years, however long you want to make it, to make the cap charge a little bit more palatable, and then trade him later down the line if you need to, or release him at that point where that cap charge isn't going to be as significant. But man, I feel like he doesn't seem to be having any ill will against anybody from the Washington organization. It just seems like to me they could have handled the situation better.
They could have. But as more I kept just, researching the situation, again, like you said, he was going to hit the cap really hard.
Yeah.
They had already signed Tyler Heineke to an extension.
Yeah.
So he's on the he's on the extension, and they even signed a free agent free agent quarterback. Steve Montez. So I don't know. Not going to be invested in a Steven Montez whatsoever. He probably won't even be on the active roster by next year. However, they actually got they actually had two quarterbacks on the active roster, and they just signed this guy to an extension. So I think they already locked down their backup.
Yeah,
now they're looking for a start. I know, and that's what I'm saying. It just shows that I see where they're going. They're looking for a starting quarterback, and why did they move off of Alex Smith? I guess they've, considering all that's been that's with the cap situation, and obviously they're not completely, committed to this guy, not willing to take that $24 million hit.
Yeah.
They're, I guess they're gonna go bargain basement shopping right now, and definitely try to find somebody under 24 million. And
yeah,
that's interesting considering we're seeing what the going rates are now at the top heap. Not segueing just yet, but around about 40. So I don't know the disparity between 24 and 40 as far as where 16 million a year would be considered. Like, is that like for average quarterbacks now?
I don't know. It's
$16 million. I'm like, my God, the cap is outrageous.
And it's about to go up. I can't wait for this.
I thought it was going down.
Well, so the cap is going.
I'm so confused.
So the cap is going to go down this next season, just based off of what's happening with the COVID restrictions, but the cap can't go down so much because of the CBA deal that was re-signed in 2020. Okay. So basically, the NFLPA said, "Hey, if we have to stretch out the hit that the league is going to take, going over these next few years, you guys can't cut the cap below 175." And then actually during the season they raised that to $180 million. So the NFL literally can't put the cap any lower than $180 million, which is, I think, $10 million less than last year. I think it was around 190, 195. So the reason why everybody's really excited for the cap to go up, though, is because there is a possibility that if the NFL can strike a TV deal with these networks over the next few weeks before this season starts, there's a possibility that some of that TV money can come in before this season to help with the cap hit.
Okay.
But in all honesty, people are saying, scrap that idea out of your head. even if they get the TV rights done this offseason, that money's not going to kick in for probably another 2-3 years. Perfectly fine, whatever. And that's why the Dak deal is so big right now, because the way that he structured his contract, it makes it so that when that new TV money does hit, whether that is in the next 2-3 seasons or if it does get pushed out to 2025, he's going to be up, and that it's supposed to explode. It's supposed to be a huge jump, kind of like a few years back in the NBA when they had their new TV rights deal go through.
Right.
And you had guys that were making $10 million who were just role players, ended up getting $25-30 million contracts. And you're like, what? Why is JJ Redick or whoever it is? I don't want to call out anybody specific.
Remember the Mike Conley Jr. deal at the time? He was
There's
the
a
highest paid
bunch
ever.
of guys that got
Mike Conley Jr.
ridiculous contracts just because, and that's what everybody's seeing is going to happen with the NFL with this new deal. So that is where the explosion is supposed to come from, is the new TV rights deal. But again, like I said, there is a little bit of hope that it could kick in this year, but everybody who's kind of in talks around that inner circle is kind of saying that, hey, don't hold your breath. I don't think it's going to happen this year. It might be next year at the earliest. 2 years is kind of more of a realistic outlook.
Got it.
Now, speaking of buku money, let's talk about Dak. That was a shock to me, kind of. I have a different outlook on what happened with that, so I just want to get your thoughts on the Dak deal to start.
Wow. Well, we knew something was gonna have to give as of March 9th. We knew that one of three scenarios had to play out. Either the guy, they was gonna have to release this guy, they were gonna sign him to a franchise tag, or they was gonna have to come with a deal all of a sudden, or a deal that was just Jerry Jones just kept in his back pocket all this time, So as we can see, there was obviously some deal that was just a massive deal that was just sitting out there waiting. And upon first hearing it, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. We got his money, but I'm not really doing the math. And then, I'm listening to some of the, beat writers talking, and I'm listening to some of the clauses he have in there. Hold on. This has to go down as almost one of the greatest contracts I've heard in my life. Like, he has all the contingencies and set up in there. This guy is set for life. Like, if there's a contract model to follow, you have Dak Prescott's deal is it. It makes Patrick Mahomes' deal look kind of suspect now. All of a sudden, it's weird, which as a fan, making me feel really weird and funny about these deals being signed, because as much as I can try to get excited about what just happened with Dak Prescott, that's only just going to set the stage for the next round of contracts, where now they got to trump this one. And to what end does this go, to where now they're back at the, back in the CBA, renegotiating because things are off kiltered. But I mean, a very good deal for Dak. Overall, 4 years, a 4 year, getting $40 million a year. What does he get? $95 million up front?
I don't know the upfront money. I know it's a 4-year, $160 million total contract with $123 guaranteed. And I think it's like 75. I heard a number today. It's something $5 million dollars guaranteed, 95. Like up front. Like, he's getting that today.
It's it's per him signing. It's going to be 95 since you just confirmed it.
Yeah.
So I was making sure. I was thinking 97, but it's 95. Yeah, he's getting $95 million just to sign the contract. Yeah. Like, he can walk away right now and be like, you know what? I changed my mind, and walked away with $95 million, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. Plus, he has a no trade clause now, so no, you can't trade him. And now the new no franchise tag. Like, I didn't even know you could write the language like that. Like, he can never.
I knew that you could, but I think it was more of it doesn't happen often because it honestly never needs to. And that's one of the things that kind of pissed me off about the contract, was the fact that he had to put in a clause to not get franchise tagged again. Because if you're giving him a life-changing contract like $160 million, $123 million guaranteed, what you're saying that he's your guy, and you've been saying he's your guy for however long.
Yeah, for 4 years.
But at the end of the day, if this is the guy that you claim,
Yeah,
you're behind. Why the hell is it even a thought to franchise tag him again? Why isn't what he's 27 years old.
Because he's your guy.
He's got 14 years left of football play.
But for 4 years, Jerry Jones, he might give you all that money. It's kind of like that's the catch-22 on this.
I guess what I'm saying is I'm over Jerry Jones. I honestly,
I completely understand.
Like, these owners are absolutely ridiculous. This makes no sense. And the fact that if you were willing to give him this money now, like, what changed your? What did he not do back in 2018, back in 2019 to prove that he deserved this contract? Like, nothing's changed except for the fact that he got injured, and you saw how piss poor your team was.
I don't know. Something broke down in negotiations, and at that point, I think Jerry Jones, like he likes to do a lot of times, he likes to just kind of try to wait the player out. And these players have been standing their ground, and now the clock was really against the organization. And
honestly,
and so he had no choice but to now fork over. You know what? 3 more years, at and at $3 extra million per year. And it's like, okay. Yeah. And that's what we got, because I think if they would have franchise tagged him again, I think at that point, I think Dak would have tested the market. I don't even think he would have tried to make any kind of deals with Dallas going forward. He would have played it one more year out, and he would have just left. And
yeah, there was no way, because basically I know that there was going to be a 20% jump this year from the franchise tag from last year, which would have put it around the $40 million mark this year. And then if they try to franchise tag him the year after, I think it's a 44% jump.
Yep. And
that is just crazy money. That's over the Patrick Mahomes average. I think that's probably over 50.
It's almost like $54 million.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous amount of money.
Which nobody.
There's no way that they would have ever offered that to him.
We're about 10 years ahead. No, probably about 5 seasons ahead of that price, because
I mean,
it's moving up there. We're
3.
close.
Once we hit that TV contract deal,
It
once
might
that
be
goes through,
it might be up to 6.
that exact depending on who's going to be a free agent during that time, right. that's going to be a huge contract. Whoever gets that first one,
right? But I think I think Prescott's camp really played it well. They stood their ground. Worst case scenario, he was getting $37 million out of this.
Yeah.
I mean, he had all the leverage. That was the worst case.
I think the worst case scenario, he's only getting 25, 26, maybe 30 million from a different team. Because again, I said this a few weeks ago. Dak Prescott's market is not $40 million on the open market. When it comes to other teams bidding against other teams, it would have been $30 million is your very highest cap charge. We're not going over that. And then you would have only Dallas would have paid 42 on average, I think is what it is right now, for Dak Prescott.
Exactly. And I mean, I wouldn't say that it's worse than a franchise tag, only because he would have had a multi-year deal. But I understand what you're saying. His money would have been reduced significantly to where like you said, where his market value is. And 24 to 31 ish. I won't go too high into the 30s, only because need a bigger body of work before I can really say you're in the upper echelons.
I need more than one playoff win.
And there's been this debate, like, is he a top 5? And I'm like, no. I mean, we shouldn't be off the top of my head, but it's like, is he top 10? Possibly, but
probably.
That's a whole nother conversation. It's like,
that's different money.
Let's let this whole season settle, and then let's revisit this. Yeah. Not just in the wake of.
I mean, you're never gonna know who's the winner and loser of a deal until the deal is played out, until you guys get back out on the field. So
right. So here we are, and it just seemed like, Dallas. I mean, Jerry Jones he played his hand wrong. He would have did this deal last year. He could have saved himself, 30, 40 million in the entire $50 million in this entire deal, because he would have got him in maybe for 30 or 28.
If he would have done it 2 years ago, I think so, but I
don't think
know.
he was very vested at that point. I know, and I
Yeah,
understand
you were
why
giving
he didn't
money
do it.
to everybody, Jalen Smith and Ezekiel Elliott
But
and this
proven,
guy and that
but
guy.
he was. I'm just saying, from a quarterback standpoint, I don't think 2 years ago they were really sure. I think it was too early to say this is going to be my franchise guy.
But they did. That's what they said. Like Jerry Jones said, "This is my guy." Like,
and so he signed a contract. I understand. I'm like, I heard owners say a lot of things, but if there ain't no contract behind it, that's just talk. And until today, I mean, that has been.
Hold
just
that
talk.
thought, because honestly, I do think that this still, if there is a possibility that Jerry Jones isn't behind Dak Prescott still.
Okay.
So me and you talk, and this is going to be our obligatory Chicago fandom talk.
Mm-hmm.
Just fair warning, if you want to skip, we'll put a timestamp down below. No. But so when the deal went through, and we talked about it when the deal went through, we were kind of shocked. Went through, like, oh, this takes Russell Wilson this takes Dallas out of the Russell Wilson sweepstakes,
right?
Because they've got him locked up. They're not going to trade him.
Immediately, what came to my mind.
I gave it some more thought. I think this actually puts Dallas in the Russell Wilson sweepstakes, and here's why. Now Dallas could be the front runner to get Russell Wilson because, first of all, Russell Wilson is willing to play for Dallas, and Dak Prescott, in having a long-term deal, if he's willing to be traded to Seattle, if he says, "Cool, I'll go to Seattle. I don't care if you guys aren't behind me. Obviously, if you want to trade me, I'll go to Seattle." I don't see why he wouldn't want to go to Seattle. You got DK Metcalf over there. They're working on trying to put together a better offensive line and better weaponry, and he already plays in a system that favors running the ball, where Pete Carroll would want him because he's not the guy where you're looking to have him air it out 50 times a game.
Okay, I hear we going.
So I think if everybody says, "Hey, let's waive our no trade clauses, let's get the deal done," Dallas is set up for the best situation because they have the picks, they've got the quarterback to trade away, and they've got a couple of larger contracts on the defensive side of the ball. If they do need more to go get Russell Wilson, they should be more than willing to give up a couple of things to try to restructure that and go get Russell Wilson.
I think, yeah, I can agree with that from the standpoint of Seattle, because that's a much more feasible deal for them, where they can actually get a franchise quarterback in return. Yeah. However, now from the Russell Wilson side, this is part of my fandom too, but the Russell Wilson side has to look at this like, okay, he did not go on record bragging about that offensive line, which is not fixed whatsoever.
Oh,
and
no,
that's all fine and dandy. So I guess my saving grace is hanging on the fact that he's going to look at the decimated defense and the suspect offensive line, and that's not necessarily his going to be his number one destination, as opposed to revitalizing a storied franchise.
Yeah.
I mean, Dallas
still think
can
Chicago
fit that criteria as well.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but I hear where you're going, and you make a very strong point. But my fandom is just not. I don't know. I don't want to hear this.
I know. I don't want to hear it either. And this is that's what because I went to go satisfy my girlfriend's cravings for some cake while I was on the drive, and it just literally late at night it just hit me.
What kind of cake?
Carrot cake.
Carrot cake in the middle of the night. Moving on.
I'm a great boyfriend. No, so it was like it just really hit me on the drive because like I was like, wait a minute. Now they have a long-term quarterback to trade away if they want to, and if he's willing to go to that franchise.
Right.
And I know that with his no trade clause, it's probably a lot harder, obviously, and there's not a high probability that Dallas is willing to move off of Dak Prescott right now. But on the off chance, because we didn't have any inclination that Russell Wilson wanted to go anywhere just a year ago. We didn't have any inclination that Deshaun Watson wanted to go anywhere just a year ago. Things happen so fast in the NFL, and it would just be Chicago's luck to have a team like Dallas swoop in and steal somebody that it has the opportunity to go ahead and get a guy to change their franchise. So It was just me as a Chicago fan being disappointed over and over again for the last however many years. Just seeing what could happen possibly kind of shocked me, and I was like, oh, all Chicago fans be aware this is a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, and now I'm breaking down Russell Wilson's contract. He's getting 35 a year, 35 million.
It's a $7 million difference,
which could be enough for them not to be like, well, we can't afford that. But yeah, that's a lot of moving parts with that. And I get it. It's not, I know it could be like just, it's really, Prescott for Wilson, but I think
I'm just saying that's just Chicago's luck, where there's so many moving parts, everything just falls in line to just screw us over.
Of course.
So like that.
But if you want to say we talking about the fandom, we had the Bears did aggressively go out there and they signed Allen Robinson to the franchise tag.
Something we got to talk about.
Yes, which I'm just saying, but it showed that they were being aggressive, because if you're trying to pitch Russell Wilson, well, we're gonna do this right off the bat anyway. So here's your receiver, which we know that that needed to happen. Of course, any Bears fan would let's secure Russell Wilson first. And
my heart was racing when the deadline was coming up. I mean, it was coming up on 2:30, and we still hadn't heard anything yet. And I was like, oh God, Chicago, let's not mess this up. Come on, let's go. Let's make sure we got something in place for whatever quarterback we do go get. They got to have somebody to throw it to. So as a Chicago fan, I was like, just don't mess this up.
And as of right now, Chicago did what they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
They moved their chess piece forward, and now they're in position for
making those plays.
Right.
So I mean, and that's the thing. Like I said, this is obligatory Chicago fandom talk here. Chicago did do the right thing. They did take the necessary steps to lure some of these guys that we're looking at trying to get over here for next season, for us to be able to make a move like getting Allen Robinson on a 1-year franchise tag deal worth, what is it, $18 million? Yeah, $18 million next year. That's definitely gonna give some quarterbacks some hope.
Where do you get the $2 extra million from? I thought they were supposed to get him for 16.
It's because again, the franchise tag is completely ridiculous. There's so many hidden rules behind it. When you have already a certain amount of money to franchise tag a guy of his caliber, I think there's something with the amount, his stats from last year and the money that he made from last year, he gets another percentage bump towards the salary cap, plus his age or something like that. There's a bunch of rules that allowed it to go up to $18 million. But and again, these are all approximate numbers, because all of the franchise tags are based off a certain percentage of the salary cap. And again, we don't know what the salary cap is yet officially.
Got it.
So that's that. But yeah, so Chicago gets Allen Robinson, one of the big franchise tag guys from this deadline period that is now locked up.
Exciting times.
Great. I was very happy to see that notification buzz past my phone. So glad Chicago got that done. But there's an even bigger, I guess probably not an even bigger, but a lateral importance.
Just as big.
Yeah. Chris Godwin, he gets franchise tagged as well by Tampa Bay.
I was gonna say, when that happened, Chicago, you have to sign this guy back, because that was my alternative. If you can get Chris Godwin in place of Allen Robinson, I can see that movement. Yeah. But if you gotta have one or the other,
So that happens, and now Chris Godwin is locked up. And this is what I was saying. I honestly think that AB, he's gonna be on the move. He's gonna be available, I think.
You said, see? You did say that.
Yeah.
I was like, as soon as I heard that, I was like, I gotta hear this now. Because I'm shocked, because I did not think they were going to re-sign this guy.
Yeah. Well, this is the other big thing, is that you use the franchise tag on Chris Godwin. You can't use the franchise tag on Shaq Barrett, who is now an unrestricted free agent.
And now it just made me smile, because I was like, you know what? I think y'all chose the wrong guy. You can replace Chris Godwin a lot easier than you can replace,
especially with
Shaq
the other
Barrett.
guys that are on this list. I mean, obviously it's not going to be at the same production as Chris Godwin, but you can go get a Kenny Golladay, you can go get a Corey Davis, you can go get a Curtis Samuel, you can get a Ty, you can
Right.
Resign AB. You can get a Sammy Watkins. Like
you get
there's
two
so
of these guys.
Yeah.
You know, like it just was like, wow, y'all. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I'm curious to see what they do with Shaq Barrett now. You know, because it's like.
Well, Shaq Barrett's on the open market now. Like they literally can't do anything. I mean, obviously you can try to
make an
re-sign
offer,
him.
right?
Yeah.
I was just saying, but is he gonna take a hometown discount? Like, I mean, if he does, I swear they do this NBA thing.
Well, I
like
don't think
see.
Shaq Barrett is, because it sounds like I think that there was a quote that came out that Shaq Barrett's looking to get paid.
That was my impression too. So when I seen that, well, now as a Kansas City Chiefs fan, I'm like, wow. I'm like, not that he has to go to Kansas City. It's more so that he is gone. He's leaving Tampa, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes, you can breathe a little bit now.
You're not going to be under duress as much.
No, you can stop running because they're not chasing you anymore. It's done.
Well, they do still have a lot of guys on that defense. Let's give Tampa Bay a little bit of credit there.
True, but you take him, and
he's a huge.
Sue is leaving, right?
Well, Sue is a free agent,
which I don't think he's. Well, we don't know if he's re-signing, but nothing had pointed to him coming back at this point.
Well, but that's because Shaq Barrett was supposed to be there, so maybe we don't know.
Are they taking? They're gonna take this discount. They Super Bowl champions now. Like, are they gonna really take a hometown discount? Like, I could see it happening, but I hope it doesn't. I don't really feel it is, but I'm thinking this defense is going to take a step back. Which, after what I seen in the Super Bowl, it needs to take a step back.
That is an OP defense. But I mean, again, there is the possibility, like you said, Shaq Barrett could still take a hometown discount and re-sign for maybe a year. I think if he's going to take a discount like that, he's definitely going to make that a very short-term deal so that he can be re-upped when the explosion happens.
Right.
But before we get into the defensive side outside of Shaq Barrett there, I do want to talk about one thing which does make me smile, because I did go for bat for this guy. Mm-hmm. And I think you slandered his name a little bit. And now that Kenny Golladay has not been franchise tagged by Detroit, it doesn't seem like he's going to be there for the long haul. So what are your thoughts on Detroit not giving him the franchise tag for one, and Kenny Golladay being on the open market?
You know, it don't even matter whether this guy had signed or not. There's a lose-lose scenario for Detroit. Detroit's just, man, I can't even begin. Like, how y'all gonna mess this up? I mean, I know I talked against them, but this is what I'm talking about. That can't get out of their own way. Like, okay, so what are we doing? Hear me out. So this is what we're doing. We're going to pass up on the best wide receiver we've had since Calvin Johnson, and which was the best wide receiver we probably had ever in general. And the only person that came close to him was Herman Moore back in the 90s. Yeah. And I can't remember anybody else from Detroit outside of Barry Sanders, and it ain't too many names. I just don't remember anybody from there. They were our division my whole life, and I still don't know.
Some respect on Matt Prater's name.
Respect with a T. but so they don't sign him. And so I'm trying to figure out, what are y'all doing? Because you went and got this quarterback. You would think that natural thing is, okay, we're just gonna make him a multi-year deal. That's what I thought was gonna happen. Not even the franchise tag, but then he didn't get tagged at all. So now I'm kind of thinking, like, wait a minute, nothing. Or like, what? So are we really gonna sit here and go? Y'all gonna gather together your little nickels and dimes, and y'all gonna sit here and try to give oh my God, his name is leaving me right now.
Kenny Golladay? Or
who plays counter side of him?
Marvin Jones.
Marvin Jones. I'm thinking Marvin Hall. I was thinking
Marvin Jones.
Marvin Jones. You telling me you're gonna pay him to be your number one now? I know he's a free agent, but that's my point. Yeah. Like, he can't demand the same market that Golladay can. However, he's gonna get paid just based on where the market is set. So
I think if Detroit doesn't get Kenny Golladay, well, obviously you didn't franchise tag him, and if you're not in close enough negotiation, because it sounds like from all the reports that are coming out, they started talking about it this offseason, and they were just nowhere near close to a deal. Like, they were on complete opposite sides.
And I'm sure he probably wants a king's ransom at this point. And
especially to play in Detroit.
That was my point. I'm like, and Detroit needs to have this kind of hazard pay clause in their contract because it sucks playing in Detroit. I mean, like,
well, so here's my thing: is that so if you're not paying Kenny Galladay, pay no one, because at this do the Indianapolis thing. Don't just go spend your money on everything just because you have it. Yes, you have $70 million in cap space, but you don't have to pay it if you can field a comparable team. Play Moneyball. Go get guys that are worth a certain amount of money, and you don't go with these exorbitant contracts that are going to give you a cap hold and a cap charge 3-4 years down the line because you don't know where you're going to be. Like I said, things change on a dime in the NFL. So if you're not going after Kenny Galladay, the best wide receiver that you've had since Calvin Johnson, pay nobody. Just go get one of these lesser guys. Go try to go get an Alan Lazard. Go get a Sammy Watkins. If Antonio Brown's there for a decent contract, go get him so that you give Jared Goff a guy to throw to. But don't go spend $18, $19, $20 million on a guy just because you have the money.
I'm Jared Goff. I want to trade. I want out of here.
Jared Goff has no say.
Exactly. But I mean, that was a short-lived celebration. Just watching this move here, like, I don't know if he was supposed to be franchise tagged. I don't even know what this really says about Detroit. Are they really trying to negotiate behind the scenes? That remains to be seen. But the fact that two of the top 3 wide receivers got franchise tagged and he didn't. I don't know if that's supposed to say something or not. But it just don't feel right. It don't look right.
Yeah.
It just look like maybe y'all need to just follow suit with the other 2 teams and just do what they're doing. And, because, I mean, y'all was doing y'all own thing since the inception of y'all franchise, and y'all are horrible, you know? So their results are just not good. And at this point, I think the franchise tag for them would have been a desperation play just to lock him in. And, like, at this point, y'all need whatever you look, Jared Goff is going to need weapons. You got this big PR move. You made this aggressive trade. You let go of your beloved Matthew Stafford. So as a fan base from Detroit, I'm really sitting there like, where are we going at this point? Because we got Jared Goff and no assets. And it sounded good on paper when it first happened, but now I'm like, man, okay, we got Swift. And we got Jared Goff.
No offensive line, no weapons to throw to.
Right. I'm
horrible
sorry. And
defense.
Hockenson. I'm sorry, but like, is Hockenson
yeah.
gonna block for Goff so he can throw it to Swift? And like, what, on a 2-yard pitch? I'm like, that's Detroit, people. This is what I mean. Detroit,
it's gonna be a rough year. I think if you're a Detroit fan, this is not gonna be your most exciting year for that matter. Nope. It's gonna be a tough one to get through, but I do think that, like I said, if you're not paying Kenny Galladay the money, if you're not going to do a franchise tag, which is worth whatever it would be, $17, $18 million, pay nobody. Don't go just spend your money like crazy just because you have it.
I couldn't even imagine who's left on the list that'd be even close to $18 million right at this point.
Maybe Juju.
$18 million?
I wouldn't, but I could see a team paying him just because, like I said, if you have the money, some of these teams, they just like, well, we got it. Let's give it to him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, stay tuned, people.
We'll see what happens with them.
I'm not done with Detroit just yet. So,
I feel a little bit better for going to bat for Kenny Galladay. So wherever he ends up going, I think that he's going to have a much better year to prove to you that he is much better than Alshon Jeffrey and his talents.
Was that based on the fact that he had to go back to Detroit?
No, you said that with the possibility of him going to Detroit, but you said it didn't matter. You think until he proves it to you, you're going to continue to speak that slander.
What that he's going to put out Alshon Jeffrey type performances? Is that what you said?
I was saying from what I've been watching and from my analysis of Kenny Galladay, he is better than what the product of Detroit has put out. That's what I was saying, but you were saying that all you saw was Alshon Jeffrey in a Detroit Lions uniform,
based on the product that Detroit puts out. And I'm not doubling down. I still stand by what I said because
I don't expect you to go back on it.
He has to, he's gonna have to perform wherever he's at, and that's fine. It
just makes me feel better because when you did say
he has no dog. That's what I said.
At the end of the conversation, you did say this is based off of, I mean, obviously he has the opportunity to get franchise tagged or re-sign back in Detroit. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, if you stay in Detroit, obviously that's not going to be a good situation for you. You're going to do the same thing. So based off of that, this makes me feel better knowing that he's more than likely going to be somewhere else.
Okay, so game on then.
Game on.
So, yeah, well, let's do this. Okay, Kenny Galladay.
Again, I will replay that clip when Kenny Galladay.
He heard this podcast. He don't want to sign no way. He's just waiting. He's like, you know what? He ain't ready. He don't want this smoke. He don't want this.
Let's move over quickly to the running backs and then talk about the defense. Before we go over into our bracketology here, let's talk about Aaron Jones for a second. Doesn't get the franchise tag from Green Bay. They still have A.J. Dillon. Apparently, they still are trying to work on a contract to try to re-sign him.
I heard that.
Yeah.
I don't like that. That was discouraging news for
me. I didn't like to hear that either. I want to see Aaron Jones elsewhere because I do not want him running over the Bears defense anymore. No, having those two Aarons in Green Bay really has been a struggle for the last 3 years for me.
Problems.
Yeah. So Aaron Jones, if they are able to get a contract done, he'll be in Green Bay. He'll be the same situation. But if from where we are right now, they didn't use a franchise tag on him, Green Bay usually doesn't use the franchise tag. We didn't expect it to happen. But if Aaron Jones is moving on, we've already talked about it. Where else would you like to see him? What do you think about Aaron Jones as a prospect in this free agency class?
Man, he has to be the number one running back, out there. Unfortunately, the value of running backs have gone down so significantly. It's kind of like, okay, it's a very weird kind of a situation that he's in. So I think there's a small market for him where he can be really good and thrive. We already said Buffalo can't probably afford him,
Yeah.
But I'm really interested to see what is his market value,
I would love to see him on the open market to see what type of money he gets, because I don't think it's not gonna be a Christian McCaffrey deal. It can't be. There's no. At the end of the day, the NFL teams do not value the running back position. They say it's the easiest position to replace. So you can go in the draft, go get a guy, and that's probably what Green Bay's going to do if they don't re-sign him, because they've already got A.J. Dillon. They got him last year in the draft, and he played fantastic for them down the stretch.
And the game has changed so much where the value of running backs have changed and shifted.
If
the power dynamic of that has shifted, because
if you're not a Christian McCaffrey who catches the ball out of the backfield, or Le'Veon Bell who has been that guy.
What you're saying, catching. And that was the thing, because back in the early 2000s and definitely in the late 90s, you had the bell cow thing.
Yeah.
And that and Kansas City must have had the corner market on this with the Priest Holmes and the Larry Johnsons, where they were just, for 4 years, we're going to run you until the wheels fall off, and we're going to put the wheels back on. I'm going to do the whole kneecap thing now. No, I'm going to stop. I digress. I was gonna sound really goofy, but they were just, they ran these two guys into the ground in about 7 seasons. And and they had the most spectacular 7 seasons ever. But yet, it opened up it was Pandora's box for owners. Started seeing like, why would I pay you all this money when you have such a short shelf life, versus how we're just gonna run you until you can't run anymore. Then they started to back off of that, because now we got more option plays. It definitely is it's a pass first league that we live in, that we're living in this day and age. So the traditional, smash mouth football, you see that for scheme. It's more of a scheme. It's not really, a team identity anymore. So bigger, better, faster, stronger. Got to be able to run, got to be able to catch, got to be able to block, it's so much more is asked out of running backs this day and age, where, that market is what you would think that they would still have a considerable market, and yet it's just depends on who you are, the situation.
Yeah. It's such an important position to go win a championship. Look at Tampa Bay. You had Ronald Jones, you had Leonard Fournette, and they were huge parts of you winning that championship game and being in that championship stretch. They were huge parts of it. But again, it's such an easy position to replace. You're going to have guys on the open market to go in the free agency and go snag for cheaper money. You're going to have guys in the draft every single year that come in and they're powerhouses as rookies. And you're like, well, I'm not gonna pay you $18 million when I can pay this dude $3 million because he's a rookie. It's such an easy position to replace, unfortunately. And I feel bad for any running back in the league, unless you're Christian McCaffrey, where you honestly are not just a running back, or you in the past, Le'Veon Bell, he hasn't been able to do it over the last few seasons, where you're literally that utility guy where you can catch the ball out of the backfield, you can block for your quarterback, where you're running the ball, you can be that every down guy, you can be the third down guy, you can be the fourth guy running back.
And he's a throwback, and because I mean, even though he does all these things, he's a throwback of a historical player that, and at that time it was revolutionary, and you didn't really see it until now, and that was Thurman Thomas out of Buffalo. Because he was like, man, he was a catching running back, and yet if he was just being a bell cow, you couldn't stop him, you know, and you couldn't stop him out the backfield from catching passes. And he did everything.
Unless you're that guy, you're not gonna get paid because you just don't have that value, because everybody can do what you do. And it's not, I'm saying anybody who's made it to the NFL can do what you do. Unfortunately, and that's just a sad fact of the NFL now. Is that it's it's honestly the least valuable position, because there is just so much talent at the position where you can get a guy on the cheap, or you can get a couple of guys on the cheap to fill that void if you do lose out on a guy like Aaron Jones. So
yes, you're seeing more committees now.
Running back by committee.
And I mean, there was mid '90s. You'd be lucky if you can name the third running back on the team. I mean, this year alone, especially if you was in your fantasy leagues, you was on the 6th, 7th. I mean, and you knew these people, they were household names all season for you. Like, I know. We already knew who next man was up, because every other day somebody was dropping like a fly. Somebody got COVID or something. You had to know who was on the roster, who's on the practice squad, who's on the. You needed to know this kind of information, because their number was getting called. So,
for sure.
So if you was one of the few where you wasn't the next man up, but you was about to be, your time is coming this year, because they didn't work their way down to the 7th guy, because and that's what I mean. That's literally a next man up position. Like, they just got a plethora of just running back sitting in the pool, just waiting to just biting at the, chomping at the bit just to get in and show what they can do. And like you said, they all look, versus apart from the jersey, they all doing the exact same thing.
And it's unfortunate to say, because it is a talent. It honestly is. It's fascinating to watch a guy like Alvin Kamara, a guy like Aaron Jones, a guy like Christian McCaffrey do what they do. But when you have Christian McCaffrey go down, and what's his name?
Mike Davis.
Mike Davis comes in, and your team's not falling apart. It's like, well, what's the point of us giving you that contract? Like, and that's where the owners come in, and it's like, well, what is your value then? Because if you're not the reason why we're winning, why am I paying you $24 million? Like, and you're never going to. And just because we're seeing this more and more now, it's not going to change, and it's going to continue to go down this path where I feel like at the end of the day, we're going to get to a point where the highest paid running back in the NFL is going to be a guy who's only making $5 million, even though he is a huge part of that team and a huge part of that team's success. So it's a sad fact of the NFL, but it is what the NFL is right now. So like I said, we just want to see what the market is for Aaron Jones. So please, Aaron Jones, do not re-sign with Green Bay. That's not me talking as a Chicago fan. That's just, I want to see what you can do on the open market.
Right.
Now, let's talk about some defensive free franchise tags that happened really quickly here before. Like I said, I promise this is a show about sports movies. So we will get to that in a minute here. But Leonard Floyd from the New York Giants, he does get a franchise tag worth $19.3 million. The 26-year-old is locked up for this year. What do you think about Leonard Williams returning to the Giants?
I thought that was a very smart move for New York, because as we were discussing it last week about, we kind of touched on him, and we was wondering what his destination would possibly be.
Yep.
What would be his best options and stuff like that. Well, New York finally smartened up and realized the best thing for them was to bring this guy back, and rightfully so. It's like, man, why would you let this guy go into the free market if you're trying to get yourself out of NFL obscurity? It's definitely going to have to be done on not just on the offensive side of the ball, but the defensive side of the ball. So at least locking this guy down for one more year. Hopefully they can work on the deal because you want to get this guy long term. Nothing that's necessarily going to break the bank, but like you're saying, if the cap is going up, man, you definitely want to just lock him in just so you can go ahead and restructure a deal when the new cap comes in.
I would do something where you can get him on a longer term deal so that when that money explodes, you still have him at a decent number where you still have a lot of headroom to go try and get some other guys, because we saw it this past year. The NFC East is wide open.
Exactly.
There's not too much competition. Alex Smith is out of Washington now. Like, who wants it, basically?
Right. And now that Dak got his deal, and now New York did their franchise tag, and Philadelphia did their trade. So everyone's done something so far. So I think New York, they didn't come out with a big splash, but they did what they needed to do. Was step one, secure this guy.
They were number 2 in this division last year, and so if they're able to just hold pat with the guys that they have, and then once we hit free agency next week, make some moves, do something to go get some guys to help out Daniel Jones and then bolster that defense, New York could be a team that's a force to be reckoned with next year, especially because Joe Judge, he didn't have a horrible year last year. He did kind of coach that team as a freshman head coach, came in there and got them to win a couple of games. Definitely better than what's his name, McAdoo over there. Definitely changed kind of the culture a little bit. So the only other guy that I have to talk about, I know there was another safety by the Jets that was franchise tagged, Marcus May. Don't really want to talk about that because it's the Jets. I want to talk about Justin Simmons in Denver. Free safety, gets the franchise tag, 13.7. This is his second franchise tag in a row. What are your thoughts?
I feel, why are they punishing this man? I'm sure he just want to leave at this point, and they don't lock this guy in. I mean, Denver's a mess.
Oh, God,
like
Denver.
I don't want to be the poster child for like you're the rebuild guy. Like we're rebuilding through this. It's just one of those situations where he's stuck. Right. He's gonna get paid, but I mean, unless he's not really committed to winning championships, and he loves Denver, and
I think he has to be. He's 28 years old.
I'm saying unless that's not really what his goal is, and he's just content with just being where he's at. I don't think he is. I don't think he could be, and I think this is one of them situations where the franchise tag is going to cause animosity, and it's really he's going to be in his feelings of this year because you've seen Denver last year, and Denver's first move. If I'm Justin Simmons, and their first move was they locked me down. Like, oh my God, you showed me nothing.
So many other things that we needed.
Like give me something to feel good about being signed first before you could have did something before the deadline, and they didn't. It was just like he'd been waiting, probably sitting there hoping like, please don't pick me, and then he gets up today, and all of a sudden his agent calls or whatever, his phone rings, and boom, guess what? You're getting paid how much again?
It's $13.7 million.
$13.7 million, which
fully guaranteed.
And he's getting paid now, and that might be just enough for him. I mean, he's in Colorado.
Yeah,
y'all know what goes on in Colorado. He's gonna be doing a lot of that. Just
got
relaxing.
a lot of ski slopes.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So, Justin Simmons, I mean, I would want, like you said, why are you torturing this man? Like, I really want to see him on a team that's a contender. I think he's got a lot of talent. Exactly. But at the end of the day, hey, it's like you said, you're getting paid. Go get your money before you go get your ring. So he's got that.
And never gonna see $13.7 million ever again.
Not per year. Yeah. So I do feel bad for him having be stuck there. But hey, maybe this is giving them the possibility to go get Deshaun Watson, maybe that'll make Justin Simmons feel a little bit better if they can get that trade done. If Houston will come to their freaking senses at some point.
And who knows what they're pitching them. They could be possibly giving them a preliminary plan as to maybe he's step one. We don't know, but I'm giving Justin Simmons' initial reaction to the news. He couldn't have been super excited, even with the money. I think that was secondary to, wow, I'm back in Denver.
Yeah. Well, so I guess that'll wrap up just kind of recapping some of the big stuff that happened. Like we said, this was the closing part of the franchise tag window. Do you got another?
I just one little notable
Yeah.
thing. It's not even a franchise tag player. It's a retired player that just announced his retirement.
Oh, who did?
Oh man, my beloved fullback.
Oh yes,
Anthony Sherman
Yes,
retired.
I did see that. I forgot about that. Yeah, he did
Fullback from
retire.
Kansas City. Yes.
That was unfortunate. I do feel like I really feel like Kansas City could have used him this last season. Maybe one more go at it. But hey, he's not there. They're gonna have to change up the offense a little bit. Frees up a little bit of money for him. They get a compensatory pick. So we'll see how that all plays out.
I guess he just figured he just go out on a good note. Like,
Yeah.
look, I went to 2 Super Bowls. That's good enough for me.
He's got his ring already. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, he's had a fantastic career. 10 years in the NFL. He's been a mainstay at a dying position. He's been one of the guys outside of Kyle Juszczyk to keep the position alive. So
I mean, and retiring at 32, not bad.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he seems like he's content. You know.
I want to see what he does outside of football. Maybe he goes into commentary. Maybe he stays in Kansas City and does some like local radio.
Maybe he goes into coaching, become a running backs coach. Who knows?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I just want to see what he does next with his career because 10 years in the NFL, like I said, he that was fantastic for him. But like you did remind me about somebody retiring. We have somebody unretiring. Did you hear about this?
Yes.
Our good friend, wish he was friend of the show, Kyle Long, unretires. But he isn't under contract with Chicago, so he could. I believe so. I believe he can go anywhere.
Yeah, that's not great news for Chicago per se.
Not at all. We need a guard.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's looking around, and Chicago's probably not at the top necessarily number one on the list.
Unless we get Russell Wilson.
Right. I don't. Let's navigate around that because we'll have more to talk about as far as the Russell Wilson thing anyway, because as the story continues to develop and we also got the pending Deshaun Watson.
This story is developing so fast every single day. There's been so many things to come out that makes me excited and nervous and
Right.
As a fan, it just you can go.
I'm 50-50, so I think we're feeling really good about. There's a good chance this can happen. So in the meantime, just so stop us from passing out every 2 seconds, we just gonna every time I get an alert, my heart stops.
Oh, every single time. It was funny because me and Sydney we were running errands the other day, and it was today. We were just out, and every single time my phone buzzed, it was ESPN, and I was like, oh my god, like every single time, it's just like, oh no. So I mean, it's funny because this is an exciting time to be a fan of Chicago sports, but also if you look down the line, if none of this works out, this is going to be one of the most depressing seasons in the NFL for us.
Absolutely. Because I mean, if they don't get Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson, what direction does Chicago go? Okay, I got a short list, but
please,
this is my short list because everybody gonna have their own list. But I had 4 to 5 quarterbacks that I thought about. I was thinking about you in the midst of this that I'll put before Alex Smith.
Okay.
So, and that's not a knock to Alex Smith. It was just like
I get
was
it.
just like, because I thought about you.
I'm interested to see who these guys are, though.
Yeah, I remember you saying, oh yeah, man, if they can get Alex Smith, and I was like, really? You're like,
hey,
I
do.
I'm not close to it, but I was like, I ain't warmed up to it yet either.
I have a couple of guys ahead of Alex Smith as well, but I wouldn't. At the end of the day, anything is a loss if it's not Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson. But if we are trying to look and stay afloat, Alex Smith, I feel like definitely, if he's looking to stay a starting quarterback,
okay,
I would love to have him in Chicago.
All right, my short list. So I thought about what you we talked off air, of course, but I was thinking about what you were talking about, and I'm blindly warming up to this person, just for the sake that the Bears quarterback history has been so putrid that I'm willing to even take a chance on this guy. If we can take a chance on Nick Foles, why not? And that would be if they was able to have to go and orchestrate a trade for Sam Darnold.
He's at the top.
I'm open to the fact of, what, we can get him. He could be a bust. We can get him and he could be a Pro Bowler. I'm good with that. That's
It's-
better than where we are now.
What I like about it is the fact that he's in his 4th year this year.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we'd be given the option to pick up his 5th year option as well, since he's still in his rookie contract.
Right.
Go ahead, pick that up if we want to next year. So it could be either 1 or a 2-year deal.
Right.
And he's young. All he's known in the NFL is Adam Gase. I mean, he had the end of Todd Bowles being a head coach, but really all he's known is Adam Gase. And we've seen Adam Gase with another quarterback for however long in Ryan Tannehill, and he gets out from under him, and then Ryan Tannehill looks like a god in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
That's a joke. He looks good in Tennessee. But if we could have a good quarterback in Chicago, somebody who can just not F it up, I love having a young guy like that on our roster to possibly be a second image of Jim McMahon, maybe.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Or not so great and then look like Jay Cutler. I don't know. I'm just
Jay Cutler's better than Nick Foles right now. Honestly, I wouldn't. Anything is better than Nick Foles, so I'm not
better. I'm just making. It was just a knock on.
That's more of a knock on Jay Cutler than it is on Nick Foles.
Right. So I had Sam Darnold in the trade. Based on what I've seen last year, it didn't necessarily. This guy didn't necessarily pass the eye test for me solely, but when his numbers came in at the end of the year, I was convinced and that he can at least be comparable for Chicago, and that was Andy Dalton.
Oh, I thought you were going a different direction with that one. Okay.
Yeah,
Andy
which
Dalton.
They could sign just as a free agent. They don't have to give up anything.
Yeah.
And I mean, he did quite a bit with nothing, really. You know, he did a lot with little. It didn't look good in the first few games, but his game came to him as the season progressed, and he came up with some very, very solid numbers at the end of the year, which I would, again, if I plug them numbers into Chicago, they're looking a lot better than what Nick Foles was doing. And I would still stay possibly at or not a little bit above what Trubisky did in the last few games. But Trubisky did look good down the stretch. But that's larger sample size. I think Dalton is much more solid than what the possibility of, signings got to a 2-year, just to see what we got as a possibility. But yeah, Andy Dalton was on that list. Number 3 would have been a possible another trade, and that would have been bringing in Marcus Mariota. That's been my pick. He was number 1 at one point, but then I kind of over time I ended up putting Dalton and Sam Darnold over him.
Okay,
but I think, and again, another 2, possibly 3-year deal, and these are just short term until we can figure out what's next. But I think these are quick hitters that those are definitely 3 guys I would put ahead of, just for the sake of what we were talking about, Alex Smith. But Alex Smith, I had him 5th, and I'm blanking on my number 4 guy for some reason.
Was it not Winston?
Jameis Winston.
Yeah, I was going to say, because that's where I thought you were going with the Andy Dalton thing. I thought you were going with Jameis Winston.
Yeah, but the only reason why I put Winston behind him is only because he sat out his season, basically.
Yeah, and I totally understand that.
And throwing him into Chicago is not necessary. It's almost like, okay, the first year people or the first first half of the season, don't expect the world per se, because it's going to have to be that settling point, whether he gets out the gate early and slows down, or he slumps and then he picks it up. I don't think he's just going from start to finish if he went to Chicago today and he'll just be that guy.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he's number 4, and then I'll probably go with Alex Smith at that point.
Okay. So the only person that I have, because those would probably be the exact same guys that I would have, I would probably put, like, you have Sam Darnold number 1. He's my number 1.
Mm-hmm. You convinced me of that one.
Yeah, I probably would put Marcus Mariota at 2 over Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton at 3, and then I would honestly, instead of Jameis Winston, I'd go out and try to go get Teddy Bridgewater.
He was on my list. I didn't know where to rank him,
because everybody else is so sour on Teddy Bridgewater with what happened in Carolina. But I'm like, okay, he lost his number 1 offensive weapon in Christian McCaffrey, for one. Like, first of all, he looked fantastic at the beginning of the year, and that team was like, whoa, if they can figure it out and put this all together, and they can kind of mesh together after not having an offseason together, after not being able to have a preseason to play some games together. They can get through this first month, and then all of a sudden Christian McCaffrey goes down, kind of throws a wrench in everybody's plan, and Teddy Bridgewater kept playing consistent football down the stretch. So I'm just saying, I don't know why everybody is so sour on Teddy Bridgewater in Carolina right now when he played decent football. Obviously, he didn't elevate that team beyond the talent level that they had, but that's not who Teddy Bridgewater was. He wasn't that in Minnesota. He wasn't that in New Orleans. Like, why are we expecting that of him now when he got a decent contract from Carolina? He was supposed to turn it down because now he's supposed to be the face of the franchise? Come on now. Like, I don't like the kind of the Teddy Bridgewater slander that's happening, as now it seems like Carolina's trying to make a play at going for Deshaun Watson or trying to trade up to go get one of these young guys in the draft. But to me, it just seems like with everybody souring on Teddy Bridgewater, maybe his price is much lower now, and we can go trade for it, whatever, a bag of chips, and get him over here. And hey, that's much better than having a slow kind of statue of a quarterback in Nick Foles just standing back there waiting to get hit.
I think it's safe to say that no matter what, Nick Foles is at best starts the season as a backup. I think that's a consensus. We don't even have to make too many more references with him. It's just more or less, are they going to keep him on the books?
I hope not. He's making too much money.
Just let him get. What was he getting, like $4 or $5 million?
No, I think he's supposed to get like 10, maybe. I don't remember. I'd have to go look up his contract, and
they may be forced to have to.
At the end of the day, whatever it is, it's not worth it. Like, it's not worth it to have him on the roster, even as a backup.
That's what I'm going to say. Is it fair to just cut him and pay him, or versus just pay
depending
him
on what I would have to look at what the dead cap hit's going to be for cutting him and whatnot. If it's low enough, I'd say screw it. Let's cut our losses and save whatever money we can. But we have to have another quarterback on the roster to do that. We can't cut him until we have somebody else, which is unfortunate. Because if we could go into this whole situation knowing that it's going to be a different guy by making sure that he's not on our roster, that would make me feel better, because then we know that for a fact Chicago's doing something. Now, we do have reports that Chicago is coming out and they're making these Hail Mary shots to try to go get guys in these situations where they're trying to go get a Russell Wilson. They've made their plays. They've been trying. They've been very adamant in these trade talks with Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, all these guys. So that does make me feel good about it. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out with those two guys, everything's going to be a loss at that point. Because now, I do say that with a grain of salt, only because if Russell Wilson isn't traded this year, and a lot of other people, not just me, I think a lot of other people also feel like no matter what, Russell Wilson's time in Seattle is over.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a matter of if Seattle wakes up and says, screw it, let's cut our losses and let's do it now, which it seems like it very well could be, because there's been some stuff going on with Seattle in that respect, where they're leaving them off of season ticket holder letters and everything like that. I know this is kind of the same talk with Dak Prescott and him getting left off of the hype video for Dallas about a month ago, and now he signed to them. But at the end of the day, if he's going to play one more year out in Seattle and things don't work out, if it doesn't end in a Super Bowl victory, I think Russell Wilson is saying, I was serious. You didn't do enough to fix this. Trade me.
I'm hoping it don't even get that far.
I'm hoping that it doesn't get that far, but at the end of the day, if Seattle says, you said you'd be happy to play here still, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do what we can, air quotes there, and then they still fail to get him the requisite weapons and the requisite amount of support in actually changing the offense to allow him to, for a full season, do his thing instead of kind of pulling the rug out from under him in the second half of the year and going back to a style of football that doesn't work when you don't have running backs that can stay healthy. I mean, he's going to be even more pissed off than he is now. So I think, like I said, a lot of people, not just me, but I definitely do feel like he is done in Seattle. It's just a matter if Seattle wakes up and says, okay, screw it, let's do it now, as opposed to waiting until next year.
Got it.
So that will wrap up our talk and our kind of recap of some of the free agency stuff that's been happening.